You are listening to the Enormocast.
So let's say you've taken the advice you've heard on the Enormocast and played it ice climbing cool with that special climbing friend, going on trip after trip like your family, even though you've had the hots for him or her since they burned you off your proj and flips in a ratty pair of Yojimbos from the Lost and Found. Well, if the perfect belay isn't conveying your longing, perhaps the climbing-inspired jewelry and accessories of Peter Gilroy will help you put the punctuation on that date that's not a date, might be a date, climbing date. At peterwgilroy.com, you'll find jewelry, money clips, belt buckles, hats, and more, all inspired by the rock and the mountains on which your love has flourished. So please, before you resort to the lean-in or the forgotten sleeping bag or the embarrassing confessional after a 12-pack around the campfire, try a classier approach with a spectacular gift from peterwgilroy.com. And if you crash and burn, know that Peter and Enormocast still appreciate your support, even if your partner does short rope you to the curb. And remember, enter Enormo at checkout for a discount, but keep that part to yourself. The Enormocast invites you to join former guest and friend of the show, Luke Mihal, on his personal journey from the stifling confines of life in the Midwest to the wide-open spaces of the great American West. In his new book, American Climber, Mihal lyrically recounts his discovery and love affair with climbing, the desert, and freedom. If you're wondering where all the soul climbers have gone, then look no further than Luke Mihal's American Climber, available at Amazon.com, or get in touch with Luke himself at climbingzine.com.
We gotta get
Listen, where are you playing in town? Are you playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
a
big
house. We
place,
sold
that
it out.
side of town. That's a
Very
big
nice.
place. You sold
What's
it
that,
out.
20,000 seats?
We
really should.
Look, you better get up there before he panics. Those pens are loose. You're very good. I have really enjoyed climbing with you. We'll make it. I don't think so. But we shall continue with style. Good weather, bad weather. Now or later, anytime is good for climbing.
Today's show is brought to you by Black Diamond Equipment, with support from Maxim Ropes
And the fine folks at La Sportiva. And don't forget our charter sponsor, Bonfire Coffee. Go to bonfirecoffee.com and enter Enormo at checkout for a discount on great coffee and to support the Enormocast.
And now back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host, Chris Kalous. It is about 10 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time. This is episode 109 of the Enormocast, a conversation with rock climber Chelsea Rude. In other news, just got back from Lander, Wyomin, which is where Chelsea and I did this interview. This one's actually just fresh. But anyway, I want to thank everybody up in Lander for once again extending their hospitality to the Enormocast entourage, including the folks at the Climbers Festival, the International Climbers Festival. I always forget that the international part is on there. It's a little quaint when you're there. But I did meet a cat from Finland. Yeah. You know who you are, sir. I know you're listening. So I guess he made the International Climbing Festival. Anyhow, good times up there, and I just wanted to give a shout out to that festival once again. Met a lot of listeners up there, and that was also totally awesome. So thanks for stopping by. Thanks for saying hello. The words of encouragement are always helpful. All right, let's talk about Chelsea. Let's talk about the interview today. I want to admit something to you. I actually am always a bit, I don't know if it's nervous is the right word, but a bit concerned when I book interviews with who I perceive to be young, super good sport climbers or boulderers. You know, I've often said on here I don't have a lot of connection just personally to that generation. I don't have a lot of connection spiritually to the boulderers or the comp climbers. So a lot of times I come into these interviews just sort of nervous or sort of concerned that there's going to be nothing to talk about. And this is sort of a prejudice of mine, I'll admit. that I have this old guy thing about these young people, I guess. It's not really a get off my lawn sort of thing, but it's more of a, how could they possibly have lived long and seen the things, weathered the stormy seas that I have? Which is stupid, because every single time I sit down, I end up finding out all sorts of things about them that are really interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like sometimes I'm walking into somebody's going to be like, yeah, I grew up climbing in the gym and now I'm a really good climber. And you're going to be like, yeah, of course you are. And in fact, it'd probably be more interesting if you somehow grew up climbing in a climbing gym and you were terrible. Like you still sucked. Like there might be a better story there. I don't know. I've never met a person like that. But yeah, if you're out there, if you've been climbing in a gym like daily, weekly for, since you were like 6 and now you're in your 20s and you're still a terrible climber, I want you on the Enormocast. And the truth is I don't really care how hard you climb. Anyway, I mean, numbers wise, like I want to hear about the rad things you've done, sure, but the difficulty of them can be expressed in a bunch of different ways, not just the number or the letter grade or whatever it happens to be. So all these things are a big mix of me trying to be my better self, but allowing my prejudices to occasionally sort of bubble to the top. But me and Chelsea, we work it all out right away. The first thing I thought was she was like 19 years old, which, if any of you have ever met her, that's not the most outrageous thing that you might think about her, because she does not look that old. Let's get on to the interview. I just wanted to come clean about that because you'll hear me be surprised by a bunch of different things that she says. So good for her, bad for me, but I do my best, and I guess I am learning because I continue to try to get these folks on the show, and once we sit down, I get over my prejudice. I don't start shouting at them or telling them that their lives have no meaning or that they've never stared into the abyss and seen the abyss stare back at them. No, Chelsea has not done that yet, but she's done a lot of cool stuff, and it was great time sitting with her, and I do appreciate the time she gave us at the Enormocast. Now, little production note is we got this one in the mobile studio at the City Park in Lander while the trade fair festival thing was going on. We were not quite far enough away to not hear a little bit of that, so it's in the background. I don't worry about that too much. It's part of the authenticity factor of the Enormocast. So just thought I'd note that there's some weird siren. I think it might have been like the top of the kids' climbing wall. I don't know. I couldn't hear it at the time, but you always hear it later in post. But that's fine. You guys, it's like the bell. Won't drive you too nuts if you don't listen to it intently for months on end. Let's get to the interview with Chelsea Rude right after this word from our sponsors. One of our sponsors. I don't know which one, because I will put it in after I've already recorded this. So just enjoy it. Sportiva is a proud sponsor of the Enormocast. And though I will be buried one day in a blown-out pair of Miras, if you're young and open-minded about trying hot new things like Spam sushi or snail facials, just like it sounds, then Sportiva has 2 new kicks available this summer for you thrill seekers. The Squama, or rhymes with your mama, is a high-performance Velcro slipper aimed at getting you boulderers up your sickest project. Sick, bro. And the Otaki, rhymes with souvlaki, is an aggressive high-performance shoe designed to hold the downturned shape even after repeated lashings. And they also happen to heel hook like a 3-legged monkey on a swing set. So check out your nearest high-end climbing retailer or Sportiva.com for these and all the classics. And remember, when you give Sportiva your business, you support the Enormocast.
So, did you climb today?
Check. Okay. No, don't ruin a climbing festival by climbing.
I heard you say this,
yeah,
and that's all I've been thinking about.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm going to go climbing, but that's cool because I've never been here, so
yeah,
it's fine.
No, I'm joking.
Just kidding.
We've climbed here a lot over the years, so.
Yeah.
I just get busy doing this stuff, so. How old are you?
29.
29.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I turned 30 in a month.
Jesus Christ. I thought you were like 22 years old or something. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the first one to say something like that.
Yeah. But. Yeah. 30 August 12th.
Okay.
Crazy.
Wow, right on. The 30s. All right.
The 30s.
I had no idea. Okay, that's cool. I don't know how important sort of gender issues are to you in terms of promoting sort of women as climbers or any of that stuff. Is that kind of your bag or
I mean, I like it because I think, for a lot of reasons, not just because of climbing, but just getting women climbing or active outside in one way or another, I think just helps increase their confidence, and especially girls, and as far as like climbing goes, it's like, I hate it when dudes are like, I have this memory when I was like 13 years old. I was training in the gym with my dad, and there was this like big macho man standing kind of behind me, and he was like, yeah, I'd like to see a girl do this. And I heard him, and it was the first time where I was like, why can't a girl do that? And I asked my dad if I could do it, and then I just like did it right in front of him, and he just like left the gym after that. He was just like, well...
The macho man?
The macho man, yeah. He would just like shut up after that.
That's so funny because it sounds like it sort of sounds like a canned moment.
Yeah.
But, to have somebody say that sounds like almost cliche.
Oh,
and then you just totally like worked him over.
Yeah, and I was 13 years old, and I just remember thinking, why can't a girl do that? I'm just going to do it right in front of you.
Right.
Yeah,
it's weird because, I don't know. It seems like anyone in climbing, like for any moment, should realize not to challenge like a tiny little 13-year-old girl to send your problem, because she's gonna like send it like no problem, like float the thing,
especially now. But this was like in 2000,
right?
Probably in Atlanta, so the South.
All right.
And the community back then was much smaller,
right? So
people just really had no idea. Now you're like, oh yeah, a 13-year-old girl, they're crushing 514. We don't want to challenge them, but at the time, people are probably like,
maybe it's like this man. I mean, it was for so long like a man's world, and I think like I always talk about that, like I think like Katie Brown's sort of generation were kind of the very first ones to be, and Beth Rodden to be like, we're going to come into this thing and destroy you all. Yeah.
Totally.
But still, I mean, 15, 16 years ago was still that early wave of people being able to do that. Yeah. Did you grow up in Boulder?
No, I grew up in Atlanta. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was born in Colorado.
You sure don't sound like you're from Atlanta.
I tried really hard to avoid that southern accent.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you slip into it if you want?
Sometimes, for sure, after I've been drinking.
Yeah, that's the way my mom and her Wisconsin accent is too. Yeah. She'll start rolling it after a few cocktails.
I was born in Colorado. I'm the 6th generation Coloradoan, I guess. So I knew I always wanted to come back, and I didn't want to come back with that southern accent. So I was like, no, Chelsea, don't go there.
Right. Did you? I mean, that's something like. How long were you conscious of that? I mean, I'm gonna get emails. You're gonna get emails from people that are pissed at you for not having your southern accent. Don't do it. It's no big deal, right?
I don't know. I mean, probably 8th grade or 7th grade, I started noticing the accent, and I was just like, ugh, I don't know. I don't know about this.
All right, let's move on before before the angry emails come in.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Why did you come back to Colorado? And when? How old were you?
I came back almost 8 years ago to finish college, and for the climbing. And also just because I felt like my roots were there. I have grandparents in Grand Junction still who I'm really close to, and I thought it would be nice to be closer to them. And a lot of my friends live in Colorado too, so it just made sense.
Right. Okay, so this is cool because I kind of thought or imagined that you were Boulder thrown into the gyms early and just kind of came out of that scene down there.
No.
So I don't know if that's an insult to you that I was thinking that, but
no, not
but
at all.
I mean, I did. There's actually, I did my 20 minutes of research, which I'm famous for these things, this morning.
Nice.
You know, it was. You don't have like a huge web presence, actually.
No.
There's not a ton of stuff out there.
Yeah.
And mostly really current event kind of things. So,
Yeah.
And you know, I think we don't have to spend a bunch of time on it, but was it like you know, a young kid in the gym kind of thing, even down in Atlanta?
Yeah, my dad wanted to start climbing with me, and he convinced me after a few weeks to try it with him. Mm-hmm. And I loved it immediately and started competing within the first month. And I was more or less a gym baby, but my dad also like took me climbing and gave me like these different opportunities growing up, which I was really thankful for. But yeah, I spent a lot of time in the climbing gym. A lot.
Right.
Too much.
Too much?
Too much.
Like to the degradation of other things in your life, or?
No, not necessarily, but like this year I've been focusing on expanding my skills, like with ice climbing and trad climbing and all of this, when I wish that I would have been more drawn to that in my earlier 20s. Right. As opposed to just like learning these skills now. Mm-hmm. So that's the only thing that I would be like, yeah, that's kind of a bummer, because my early 20s I was really focused on competition and doing World Cups and also trying to do hard things outside, but it was like number one priority was competition.
So let me ask you a couple things about your dad. Yeah. That's kind of interesting. So he started climbing with you?
Yeah.
And do you have any idea what the impetus for that was?
You know, I don't really know. I think that he was just reading the newspaper one day and he saw an article for the local climbing gym, and they're like, yeah, come learn how to climb. And he showed me the article and he was like, let's go do this together. And at the time we didn't have a whole lot in common. Right. So it took him a little bit to convince me, because I was like, rock climbing, what the hell is this? Eventually I gave in and we tried it, and it just gave us something to do together. And it definitely made our relationship a lot closer even today. And cool. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah, and he's continued to climb?
He hasn't, actually, because he hurt his rotator cuff. I mean, he will go climbing with me, but like he doesn't pursue it on his own anymore.
And still down in Atlanta?
No. So my parents left Atlanta. My mom lives in Pennsylvania, and my dad lives in Alaska.
Okay.
Now.
Alaska.
Like
Talkeetna? Is that what you were talking about? Or, that was from a trip you did.
Yeah. No, he lives in Anchorage.
Okay.
But so it's great to go visit him, because there's so much to do in Alaska as far as climbing goes. And
is he like is he aspire like you do to doing big mountains?
Not so much. Right. He has bad knees too. He grew up in Eagle County in Colorado, so he grew up skiing in Vail and stuff. So he kind of blew out his knees. But he has a little Cessna in Alaska, so he flies around and goes fishing. And
sick.
They have this little cabin that you can't get to with a car. You either snowmobile or fly in and land on the lake. And so him and his wife spend a lot of time there. And
sweet.
Yeah, he just flies around and goes fishing and plays with the grizzly bears.
All right. All right, let's move on from your dad, since he's not here.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a cool, I don't know, way to get into it. Yeah. In a sense, like he convinced you to do it. Maybe part of like his own desire to want to be like involved in that sort of thing.
Yeah, totally. And at the time, I just didn't have anything that I was super passionate about. I had tried tennis and I had tried gymnastics a couple of days, and nothing really caught my passion. And so I think he was just trying to help me figure something out. And it clicked literally that first day.
Now, did you said that, well, you just told me you were 29, almost 30, which blew my mind a little bit. Again, I guess I had all these preconceived notions about it. I mean, we literally just met like a couple weeks ago. And I was kind of reading about you and everything else, but I guess I didn't all put it all together that I had this image that you were like a 22-year-old, like total, like just gym rat, sport climber kind of thing. But there's a lot more going on.
I think so, yeah. but you just never know. I
So-
like to just go in the shadows of things.
And you're applying to PA school right now.
Yep.
So you're kind of looking at a big change in your life.
Yeah.
And what have you been up to for the last, since you graduated high school?
Oh man, since I graduated high school.
Well, in the last 10 years, you've
Yeah.
been climbing
I've been
relatively full time.
Yeah.
And
Well, I went to college. I finished at CU Boulder.
Mm-hmm.
I took some more time and climbed, and I coached a lot for a long time.
okay.
And then I went back to school to do my prerequisites for grad school. And I was working at a women's health clinic for almost 2 years. And then I just stepped down from that to focus on my applications and focus more on climbing until I get into grad school.
Right.
Yeah, I've just been, I don't know, roaming around.
Roaming around.
Roaming around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we started kind of organically. We were talking about, I asked you about sort of women's issues.
Yeah.
And whether that, I think I find some women climbers are like, I don't want to worry about that. I just want to climb. And then some want it's part of their sort of idea of themselves. It's like, well, I want to be an example.
Yeah.
To bring more girls into the sport or anything else. And, we talking about your dad getting you into climbing and you didn't have any real passions.
Yeah.
What do you think it brought to you in terms of why you clicked? Not just, well, maybe it was a lot to do with just the physical.
Yeah.
But, did you sort of build on the things that you were learning as a climber? If you were doing it all through high school, and, what did it sort of bring to the table for you in terms of who you became or who you were elsewhere?
Yeah. I think growing up with climbing in my life, made me a much more confident person, because growing up I was super shy and just this little squeaky girl with blonde pigtails walking around mommy,
Right.
where are you? And it just gave me the confidence to know that I can do whatever I put my mind to, and whether it's with sending hard routes or going to grad school or going to college or whatever it might be. I think that a lot of people in this world get by without having any passions, and they get stuck in jobs that they don't like and end up, years down the road super miserable. And that's not me. And I think that climbing definitely opened that up for me. I don't have to settle for something that I'm not completely sold on. Mm-hmm. So that's just, I don't know. I don't know if that answered your question, but...
No, that answers the question.
Yeah.
I'm just, as people listen to the show, I got into climbing a little bit late. Not late, but I didn't do it as a kid.
Yeah.
And that's, in a lot of ways, it's a new thing, and new by meaning the last 20 years.
Yeah.
It was definitely an adult sport before gyms came along.
Yeah.
And so I'm always curious about, what it sort of feels like to add that to your sort of life.
Yeah.
Versus any other sport, like team
Yeah.
sports or anything else. Because a lot of times, especially it sounds like with you, there wasn't time, or were you into other sports? Were you into other stuff in high school?
Not when I first started climbing,
Right.
but I think that's what climbing also did to me, is it was oh, I have this body, I can use it, and be active with it and be strong with it. So when I started climbing, I also developed a passion for swimming. And
Oh,
so
really?
I swam. I started college actually at a small women's liberal arts school in Atlanta. And I swam for them, but I decided that wasn't really where I was happy, so that's why I moved to Colorado. So I developed this passion for swimming, and I also developed this passion for running. I ran track in high school.
Uh-huh.
And then also when I was in college, I started doing triathlon. So I was I'll just get a bike and I'll just put all of this together. And I think triathlon is definitely something that I would revisit, because you don't peak with those kind of endurance sports until your later 30s or even early 40s. So it's definitely in the back of my mind, oh, I really like that aspect of things. I like pushing my body into different things. But I think that's something that changed my life growing up for sure. And it also gave me more of a intimate relationship with nature, just being outside. I used to hate hiking, and now I will just go hike for 20 miles and love it. times.
Really?
Oh yeah, totally. And anytime, even
I gotta
today,
find that passion back in my life now that I have a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to start being, into hiking, into the what I call the long approach to nowhere.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, I hear there's a swimming hole around here, and people are like, "Yeah, it's a really long hike. It's like 1.5 miles," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's not that bad." But
no,
that's
the water
cool.
slide.
Yeah, the water slide. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna go tomorrow. Oh, you got your clinic.
What time are you going tomorrow?
I just mid-morning probably.
Oh no, I'm gonna go after my clinic.
Yeah.
For sure.
What time's your clinic done?
1 or 2.
Oh yeah. Maybe we'll be going then. We'll see.
You should go then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, but we kind of just rolled into this, but we're in Lander in the city park, which is why there's like cars and shit going by. So sorry everybody. And actually, with that in mind, you we're kind of all over the place, but you coached for a long time, and you did some clinics today.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted to ask you. I've never, I go to these things and there's clinics, and obviously I'm not that interested in taking like a climbing clinic from anybody, except for maybe I'd go. Like last year, we threatened to take Hayden Kennedy's clinic and just heckle him the whole time,
Which would be totally worth it.
Yeah, totally. But what did you guys do today? This is kind of an aside, but what is a clinic all about when you come up to these things?
Well, the clinic today was smooth footwork. So I don't usually teach climbing outside, so it was kind of challenging because I had people, who climbed 5'8" maybe, all the way to trying 5'14". So it was kind of really difficult to find grades that fit everybody.
You had people in your class.
Yeah.
Who are projecting 5'14".
Well, one person. I don't know, really how seriously,
right.
But they said that they definitely tried some route here.
Oh, okay.
Throw the Houlihan or something like that.
Oh, yeah, right. Famous.
Yeah, totally famous. So,
right.
So I was like, well, damn.
I don't know if I can help you.
I don't know what to do. I mean, he did great, but we were climbing on easy things, and I was like, I'm really sorry. But, there's only so much time. But, yeah, we focused on footwork, and I think that it was helpful for a lot of people. But usually I coach and teach in climbing gyms.
Kids?
Everybody, but primarily I've been coaching kids for 12 years or so.
Okay.
Yeah, and I like it. It's very rewarding and inspiring to me, and yeah.
It's a way to make a living a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's a good way to make a little bit extra money, and I thoroughly enjoy it for the most part, as long as I'm not coaching too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have to, I would imagine anything too much is too much.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I was a climbing guide for a long time, and that seems like sort of a like trad climber outdoor guy's dream job, but same thing. Like if it was too much, it was too much.
Then you're burnt, and you're like, you don't want to do it for yourself.
Right. Yeah. The thing you love is now your work.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary. But,
it is.
Cool. Well, yeah. I'm like I said, I'm sort of jumping all around, but let's talk a little bit about your comp climbing days, which you said that you're not competing. You might have if nationals had been more local.
Yeah, so I really haven't competed the last 2 years.
Okay.
I just got really burnt out spending so much time in the climbing gym training, especially with the younger generation. If you want to do well at these national championships, you better spend more time in the climbing gym than those little kids. That's just how it is. And yeah, and I was just like, I don't know if I have that in me anymore, because I have spent 15 or 16 years primarily doing that, and I was just like, I need more in my life if I'm going to continue climbing. So I was like, well, I'm not going to compete anymore. And then I felt lost for a little bit, like, what am I going to do with climbing now? Because now that I'm not competing, I don't know what to train for, or like really how to do this outdoor climbing full-time thing. But I know that like if national championships were held in Denver, for instance, I would totally compete, because it's in my hometown more or less. Right. So it's like, well, I might as well try, even though I wouldn't spend so much time in the gym training, but still just see how it goes, I guess. I have no reason to say no.
Yeah, it seems like there's a bit, of this evolution with climbing comps that a lot of these other sports went through, where, yeah, I mean, it's like you're over the hill pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You know, for competition climbing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's good or bad, or if it's just not neither, you know, it just is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, life probably gets pretty hectic if you have to start, if you're training that hard if you're not a fully supported, sponsored climber.
Yeah.
And you have, I mean, everybody talks about the older you get, like just the more things that are going on.
You totally, like you have things to pay for, and you know, like, I don't know, I'm not making a ton of money through climbing. I'm able to support myself, but I also need to do other things.
Right.
You know, like I need to pay my student loans and all of this, and also like I want to have a life outside of training. And when I was training seriously, like I just didn't have that. I literally would go to school, and then I would go train, and then I'd do my homework, and then shower and go to bed.
Right.
And then repeat.
Right.
You know, and that's when I would perform my best in competition, but it's like there's more to it than that to me now. And so, you know, I told you I felt lost with climbing after I stopped competing for a while, and it's just been kind of this last year, like 2016, where I'm like, oh, I know where I want to take climbing now, and it's kind of refreshing, and I have a new stoke for climbing, and I'm like, yeah, I don't regret giving up competition at all anymore.
So when you say you like were lost with climbing, like what did that look like? Like literally, like what? I mean, were you just not climbing at all, or just like half-assing it, or just
like I was still
like going to kind of punch your card, like, oh, I guess I'll go climbing today, but like I'm not stoked.
I mean, for a while, literally, I just didn't know what I was going to be training for. So I would go to the gym and then, you know, warm up, and then I'd be like, you know, this sucks. I'm going to go now.
Right.
So I literally, like, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no, like, structure, no goals at the time. Like, I was just like, well, I'm not training for this competition, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with climbing outside yet. And then I was like, well, I'll project something hard. But that just so happened to be in Kentucky, so that sucked. Because, you know, Kentucky's a long way from Colorado.
Yes.
So it's just like trying to find that balance and that passion again, and like, all right, how do I do this without going to competition? Like, because competition climbing really defined my climbing career for a long time growing up. That's what I did. Right. You know?
Well, I like talking about this because there's a part of me, you know, when someone tells me about like the phenomenal, you know, 16-year-old climber who just sent this or sent that.
Yeah.
I definitely come back and I'm saying, well, you know, let's talk about that person in a few years when some of that stuff falls away and they have to find the passion for it on their own without the coaching and without the structure and without the automatic goals where they're like, okay, this happens in the fall and I go to this competition in the winter, and because that's all external.
It
right?
is.
And for me and my generation and a lot of my friends, you know, we feel as though it's this very intrinsic desire to be outdoors and be in the mountains and that sort of thing. And that, you know, it's cliche, or it's maybe narrow-minded to want everybody to look at climbing that way. But I'm always curious about that evolution. I ask you what it looked like because I think, you know, all of us too climb enough for a long time. Sometimes we go into these sort of doldrums of like, well, geez, this is sure taking me a lot of time out of my life. And so what do you think the sort of, you said it was a couple of years, like where are you now, and what was kind of the reawakening of like, well, this is kind of cool and this is what I want to do?
So, you know, after competing, I was like, well, I'll just try projecting hard routes outside, which I am still really stoked on, but it was a weird feeling that I had. Like it was almost as if I was chasing grades instead of the enjoyment of it. And then actually what happened was I blew out my knee almost a year ago, and I got super depressed.
Climbing or running or something?
I was heel hooking.
Okay,
and tore my LCL and my meniscus, and I was like, oh shit, this is not good.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I'm totally fine. And it was that day, me and my friend we drove to Salt Lake City for the trade show, and I was like, yeah, I'm totally good. And the next morning I couldn't walk, so I had to get crutches and whatever. But anyway, I ended up going to the doctor and figuring out what was wrong, and we tried to avoid surgery for a bit just to see what would happen if we gave it time, and it didn't heal well. So in November, we decided to move forward with surgery, and it was that surgery that kind of re-sparked, I don't know, it just like flipped a switch. I like went through this somewhat depressive stage where I was just like, oh God, I don't know, like I'm not climbing, like I don't know what to do with myself right now, like I can't do anything with my lower body, and I like to hike and run and all this. It's all lower body, and I couldn't get in a pool because the incisions yet and all that. But then as I started to heal, like I just was like, well, I can injure myself, but I don't want to just like waste myself just trying to do hard routes, even though I still want to. But so then I started ice climbing, and I've like dabbled in some alpine climbing and trad climbing and crack climbing, and I decided that I want to like adventure climb. Like I want to get not trashed, but kind of like I want to go out really far into the middle of nowhere, climb easy or hard stuff, not have to get turned around by ice or crack or whatever is handed to me, and then go do it again later.
Right.
Like, you know, that's kind of where I want to go with climbing, and I don't know why it was that surgery that changed it for me, but like I have more psych than ever right now for sport climbing also, because I've been doing all these other things. I'm like not putting a lot of pressure on myself to send projects, even though like I currently have projects, and I just have a more laid back attitude because I know, you know, I can go try my project on this weekend, and then a couple days later I'll go trad climbing in El Dorado, and then revisit my project, and then maybe go do a little bit of bouldering or whatever it might be. And I don't know, like there's so much to do within climbing, and I just can't imagine like limiting myself to just sport climbing or just competing anymore. That doesn't sound fulfilling to me.
So, yeah, well, the competing thing, I can really understand that in terms of, again, like there's a longevity problem with competition climbing. I mean, it's just like any high level anything, you just run out of steam, whether it's psych or whether your body gives out. I mean, there's no 30-year-old gymnasts that are competing. Like,
totally.
I mean, it's the same exact kind of work on your body. Yeah. If even maybe more intense on specific parts of your body. Like, they just don't hold up. So what do you think when you said, this is what I want to do, you've kind of dabbled so far a little bit in ice climbing and maybe even some big mountain climbing. Yeah. I kind of got almost like a whiff of that on the internet, but not anything specific. I had a huge injury motorcycle riding when I was a kid. And it was the same sort of thing where I actually had the presence of mind, even as a little 8th grader, to be like, wow, what happened if I would have lost my foot or whatever? Like, I gotta do something now. Yeah. So what did it look like in terms of what you wanted to do, and what does it look like in terms of what your plans are? I mean, how are you going to make this happen? Because let me say this, one quick thing is that I feel like my sort of, I walked into this with some notions of who you were that you've just corrected me on. But I feel like you're coming from this world where the other world, whether it's Alaskan alpine climbers or anybody else, probably are going to be like, what? You? Who are you? You're like this little sport climber girl, and you want to come... Have you run into that? Like, is there like resistance to being welcomed into this community?
I actually haven't felt any resistance. Okay. Only support. Okay, actually, good. And that part of the sport needs women. Yeah, and that's what I've been told.
It's like Mars needs women. Yeah. We need girls to come to me and hang out in our snow caves with us.
I mean. So I started ice climbing, and there's this like alpine ice climbing thing that happens every year in Boulder. And they asked me to do a presentation earlier. I think it was in, I don't know, the end of February or beginning of March. And so it was the first time that I talked only about that aspect of, me learning how to ice climb. I didn't really know what to say, and I was super nervous because that's a totally different community, like you were saying, than the community that I've grown up in. But it was awesome because everybody there was super supportive and, just like welcoming, like, hey, we should go ice climbing, we should go mixed climbing, we should do this, we should do that. And like, that made me feel really good. And like, okay, I don't need to feel intimidated from this community, this part of the community.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have seen people that are like, oh, well, this sport climber, she's not going to really go far in ice climbing or mixed or alpine climbing because usually sport climbers don't know how to like suffer,
right?
I guess,
right.
Or I've also gotten this that like, oh yeah, well, a lot of people have decided that they want to try this, but they don't really keep up with it.
Well, I would say the one thing that has been shown pretty convincingly is that when a strong sport climber decides to like get into single pitch sort of mixed climbing, specifically fairly safe and bolted climbing, like they destroy, like they dominate because it's like, oh, these are giant jugs that I'm holding on to.
The whole time,
Right.
I know.
But what about the idea of scary climbing? Like, where does that fit into like your future? Because I think when there is a sort of like maybe an eyebrow raising of like, oh, this sport climber is going to come and climb these alpine routes, one of the big things is that that fear factor comes in and that danger factor comes in.
Yeah.
And one pitch ice climbing or one pitch mixed climbing is, well, not ice climbing, but one pitch mixed climbing a lot of times is sport climbing with ice tools.
Yeah.
And does that fit into your future in terms of that? And what do you think you have in the toolbox in terms of maybe getting on stuff that it's going to test your fear?
Yeah.
And test your courage in that sense.
I've gotten on some things already that have tested my fear and courage. And I surprisingly am not turned away yet.
Okay.
I have done quite a bit of multi-pitch mixed and ice climbing, and I told you I was in Alaska in May, climbing on the north buttress of Mount Hunter, actually. And
that's pretty serious.
Yeah, that was pretty serious, yeah. And so it's like Hayden and my friend Jesse Huey and Mari Birdwell, like, they've been really great because I've always known them, but we've maybe climbed here and there together and like had this conversation and that conversation in the gym. But when I started branching out into this new world, it's like they kind of took me under their wing and were just like making sure that I was making the right decisions and all of this, and just like advising me here and there. And I think that like, for them, they're like, you should maybe tone it down a little bit. And I totally agree with them. And I'm so thankful that, they're in my life, because it's just like, yeah, I'm like super eager, but I know that I don't have the experience yet to make, smart decisions or be like a 50% contributor in like an alpine route or whatever.
Right.
So I'm just working on that, but I'm like taking a step back and just trying to take those little steps and like making sure that I know my stuff, so that way I can be a good partner. Because I don't know, it's like I suffered a lot. Let's say I went to Newfoundland in March, and then I went to Alaska in May, and on both of those trips I suffered a lot, and like had trouble sleeping afterwards, and just was like frozen and like, holy shit, I can't believe I just did that. But there was something at the end of every day where I was like, yeah, that was really hard, but I didn't know that I was capable of doing that. And so that makes me feel awesome, and I want more of that.
Right.
Like, I didn't know I could deal with suffering like that. I didn't know that I could, keep my head together and get down safely after like whatever had happened. And like, that's cool to me. I want to like not only challenge myself physically, but also the whole package, like mentally and emotionally and all of this in the mountains. I think it's cool, and I don't know, those memories will last a lifetime. And not to mention like the relationships that you build on trips like that, like that's something to be said for, more so than just sport climbing and rifle on the side of a road.
Yeah.
Like, I got you, man. Don't worry.
Yeah, totally. Oftentimes what I hear on these things is that climbers, when they were younger, and you're not that young anymore.
Thanks.
Sorry. Although you're actually, to be honest with you, like, you're about to like hit your like commitment climbing, you know, and I say commitment climbing meaning sometimes scary, sometimes suffering, or almost automatically suffering.
Yeah.
You know, type 2 fun climbing.
Yeah.
You're hitting your stride. Your 30s is your damn stride.
Yeah.
Because you're not like, you're able to like kind of dig in, I think, in a way.
I feel that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it, is all I'm saying. But
cool.
But what, like, the idea of the kid paging through the old climbing magazines and looking at these mountains and being, I want to climb that one day. Like, what's in your, you know, as you've turned into, or starting to turn into this person with these big dreams, you know, that isn't just like one bolted line to the right of the bolted line you just did, which is what happurs in rifle. You know, like, oh, that
I'm going to do that one next.
Yeah, that, I don't know the name of it. It's 13D.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
What's in your sort of, you know, dream state of like, well, I'd like to go here and do that, or...
Oh, man. I mean, I think my ultimate goal would be to go down into Patagonia. To me, when I look at that place, I am in awe. And I don't know, that just seems like, you are in the Alpine, but you're rock climbing, but there's elements to take into consideration. To me, that seems like the package. And I'd like to go also to the Bugaboos. I'd like to go, you know, to the Dolomites. Like, I don't know, but Patagonia to me is like on top. Like, that's what I feel like I'm working towards.
Well, I always think that too, because that's an alpine setting where your rock climbing skills can just like be the difference.
Yeah, totally.
You know? Because you can find routes too, even that are primarily rock climbing routes.
Yeah.
But you like you said, you need the skills to get over the top on the ice, or to get to the base at the ice, and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And that seems like a kind of a natural progression for someone who's such a good rock climber.
Yeah.
Per se.
Yeah.
Who like, and maybe among your peers, or maybe even like historically or anything else, who are the like inspirations for this? Do you have like climbers that have paved the way for you in your mind, even if you don't know them, or anything like that?
You know, I really look up to Mayan because she has climbed hard sport climbs. And she's also, like, she just did something in Patagonia, like the first female ascent with, I wish I could tell you her name.
Inez.
Yeah. Yep. And, like, when I saw that, I was just like, oh my God, can I hang this poster in my room? Because this is amazing. And, like, that's what I want to do down the road, for sure. She definitely is. I really look up to Emily Harrington.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
You know, her and I have had a similar conversation.
Oh, really?
You know, and she's like, I feel like she's like a on your path, like a few steps ahead.
Yeah.
Because she's been around a little longer.
Yeah.
But it's really a lot of parallels that I've been hearing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really look up to Emily. I mean, we grew up competing together, and I just really like how, you know, it seemed like for a while she was struggling with climbing, and then she woke up and was like, well, I'm going to do this and this and this. And I just like that she's an all-around athlete. You know, like, I love climbing, but I also know that climbing isn't, you know, the one thing that I have to have in my life always. Like, I definitely...
Take that back.
You know, I don't know. I just want to be well-rounded.
Take that back. You can't say that on the Enormocast. There's nothing else. There's nothing else.
Obviously, I will climb probably for the rest of my life, but I also want to do more and see more. And so I really look up to Emily for that. And, you know, like, more immediate goals, I want to go to Yosemite, and I would love to free the Salathé. And, you know, I climbed the nose when I was a teenager with Hans Florine and Half Dome, and, like, I've always known that I wanted to go back, but, like, lead that stuff on my own and figure it out on my own. And just, watching Emily through her transition has been really inspiring. I'm like, yeah, okay, I can do that too,
Well, I see the evolution, and I've said that word already on this podcast, but it to me, it just feels so necessary that, no one can sustain like a single track, or very few people, unless you're really obsessive.
Yeah.
For forever.
Yeah.
And something has to happen, and a lot of times, it's the end of the sport for them. I mean, someone's done competing at a high level and they don't want to just take a step back and start climbing at a lower level or whatever else, or they don't want to be on the top of the heap, and that's it. They're done. You know, and they move on to whatever, which is, I guess it's fine.
Yeah, I mean
I don't
to
know.
each their own,
Yeah,
right? But like, climbing is definitely, it will be in my life forever.
Well,
at one point or another.
and again, with talking about the competition climbing, like, there's a physical problem with keeping that up, and I think also for some women, the changes that women's bodies make from being a teenager into adulthood is really tough, and you really, you talked about having to almost probably train harder than those kids.
Yeah.
And you just have to become this like body Nazi to keep yourself in that mode, because like nature's kind of against you.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Totally.
But the evolution, in my mind, I see it's like I just said, your 30s, you're hitting your stride, and so like, now your body is going to have reserves and stuff that it didn't have when it was just a ripped, nothing but competition sport climber.
Yeah.
So I think it's a natural evolution in some ways, physically, but the mental switch has to be thrown. Mm-hmm. And the suffering thing is a big part of it. And that's not just a gender thing, that's for anybody.
Yeah.
Like, the suffering thing is a big dividing line for, I think, people across disciplines.
Oh,
like,
for
can
sure.
you go out there?
Can you deal?
Right. Can you be in a position where you're telling yourself you're hating this, you're never going to do this again, this is the coldest I've ever been, this is the most miserable I've ever been, but the big trick is that a month later you're like, oh, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun.
That was.
Like, your brain forgets it, you know what I mean, instead of like dwelling on how horrible it was.
Yeah, you like dwell on the positives. You're like, oh yeah, okay, I survived. That was cool. Those mountains are beautiful. Let's go back. And not dwelling on the negative things. And I think those that dwell on the negative things, they're just like, peace out.
Right.
I'm gonna go drink some beer now.
Right. Or,
whatever.
Go to the spa.
Go hit some golf balls.
So, looking at this kind of, we're joking like climbing is the only thing in the world. I'm not joking, you are. But, and you're saying, I will probably climb as a part of my life forever. Mm-hmm. You're about to, you're trying to get into PA school, so you are looking to kind of a future of actually earning, a living.
Yeah.
Can you talk about like your concerns or your ideas about that juggle, whether it's professional or whether it's personal life? Mm-hmm. You're dating a climber right now. Maybe you always have kind of looked for partners in the climbing world, but like, what is it? It's a big thing that people wonder about. Like, how do I keep at a top level but also maintain a life?
Yeah. I mean, I personally think that if you care about being at that top level, or you have goals that are in that top level, but you also have goals in other aspects of your life, that theoretically, if you want them bad enough, you can make it happen. That might mean, like, you drop this or that in your life, but I think those are sacrifices that you'll probably be happy to make if your goals mean that much to you. And for me, I'm applying to grad school because I need more in my life than just climbing. I love climbing and it makes me the happiest person in the world, but also like I've always wanted to be in the healthcare industry, whether it's like going to medical school or PA or PT or whatever it might be. And I just think that would fulfill one area of my life versus, me just being a climber for the rest of my life. I don't know if I would feel happy forever. Mm-hmm. I think that maybe I could, but I also feel like I would feel better about myself if I did something else. Mm-hmm. I kind of forgot what you asked, actually.
Again, just the idea of that, of like,
Yeah.
not just mentally needing it, but in some ways, like logistically,
Yeah.
how is it that it all works out?
Yeah.
You know?
Through college, it was difficult because, I wanted to maintain high grades and I was competing. And so I wanted to make sure like I could at least make it to finals or stand on the podium or whatever. But now, with grad school theoretically coming up soon within the next year, I am okay having to step away from climbing to focus on school if that's what it requires of me. Hopefully I'll still be able to climb at some capacity, but I realize that at the capacity that I am right now, that might not happen. But it's for 2 years, and I figure I can deal with anything for 2 years because it's not that long amount of time. So, I just don't know, but I'm open to that idea of like having to take a step back. If that's not what happens, and that's a bonus. And then after grad school, it's like, well, now I have a job, but it can be pretty flexible. And theoretically, I could do it internationally.
Right.
At least that's what it looks like it's turning into.
Sure.
And that is super appealing to me because I love to travel, and I would love to integrate that into my profession, like climbing, and also like this new PA thing theoretically.
Right. Yeah.
So
Libby Sauter style. Yeah. Right.
nurse style.
Yeah. I mean, she gets a lot done.
She gets a lot done. Yeah. I mean, she's fast, right?
Yeah. Right. It helps. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't really know what it's going to look like, but I don't think that it's impossible. I guess the other thing with this scheduling, it's like if I feel like climbing, then I'll climb. And if I feel like going to hang out or see a movie or get a drink with my friends, then I will.
Right.
And I think that's like part of the balance thing, which makes climbing even better.
Right. Again, like the competition or approaching it that way, like it breaks the camel's back eventually.
Yeah.
Where
totally.
you're just like, wow, my life is not that great.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm forcing myself to be in this climbing gym right now.
Right, exactly. So, well, what I was going to say is that you going back to like this kind of getting older and the evolution thing is that, and I'm certainly know this, but you've got a base now. It's not, the 30s or whatever. It's like good because you're going to be able to come off the couch, and climb well.
Yeah. Hopefully.
We were just talking about it. As they were calling, some friends of mine were calling it old man strength. Like I may not be able to get much stronger, but I can go a ways and not get like horribly weaker.
Yeah.
So it's nice,
Yeah,
it's nice,
totally.
like a serious level of stuff. So, all right, well, what do you got in the immediate future? You talking about like not being psyched on climbing and now finding some of these new things. Like, what does the next year look like for you while you're waiting to find out about grad school?
Yeah. I have a project in rifle, so that's cool. Going back to sport climbing. I'm trad climbing a lot in the Front Range, and I will be climbing on the Diamond quite a bit, preparing to go to Yosemite in the fall. Whether or not I'll try to do the Salathé at the end of September is up in the air and totally dependent upon how I'm feeling with my skills at that point. But I'm not ready to just say, I'm not ready for it yet. So we'll just see.
Nuts and bolts. What is training for the Salathé in Colorado look like for you in your mind? What do you think?
Well, for me, it's like developing those skills. So making sure that my trad is down.
And you mean mechanics, gear-wise, or crack climbing?
Both.
Right.
I just learned how to crack climb in March, and I just started putting in gear in March at the same time, actually. So it's all completely new to me, kind of. I had trad climbed, maybe about 10 years ago a little bit, but I didn't continue with it because I was like, competition, sport climbing, yay. So it's just, developing those skills. I need to learn how to haul, probably learn how to set up a portaledge, all that stuff, all the logistics.
Just do it in a day.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, well, let's just cut all this stuff.
It's like super lame.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
I'm not really either. It's definitely crossed my mind. I'm like, I could have a better chance at doing it a day than if I took my sweet little time.
Right, maybe.
And had to haul stuff.
Yeah. No, there's like a when you wall climb a free climb, it's like there's a game of attrition where
Yeah.
there's a point at which like you start to run out of steam.
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
and it would have been maybe better just to go as fast as you possibly could. Yeah.
I've thought about that.
Right.
I don't really know, you know, what, I don't know.
So you talked a little bit about like a mentorship with some of these guys, some friends of mine as well. But who do you see, I mean, who do you count on for like those sorts of projects? Have you got people in mind or is that not, have you not gotten that far yet in terms of partners?
For Yosemite?
Yeah.
Well, it's in
or climbing on the Diamond this summer and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I've been talking to Carlo Traversi a lot about going up to the Diamond. My friend Mari, Hayden, like, you know, all the, you know, everyone that I've already mentioned more or less.
Right.
And then to Yosemite, it's actually an Adidas trip.
Okay.
So Adidas gets a cabin there every time in around September every year. And
it's legendary.
a bunch of us are going. Libby's going to go. Libby and I want to climb together because we have our eyes set on some stuff in Alaska for next summer. So we definitely need to rope up and like figure stuff out together. And so that's definitely on the list. And yeah, you know, I don't know if I'm winging it too much or not. I don't really know yet.
Well, you'll find out. I mean,
I'll figure it out.
It's interesting because you have this luck or whatever it happens to be, the circumstance of being on this team where you can draw on these people.
Yeah.
You know, that it's almost like you've got like your skills are this, like let's can you teach me that sort of thing?
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, like with trad climbing, I've been learning a lot from Jamie Logan, and you know, and I've been climbing a lot with Mari, which has been really good. And I don't know, it's just like it just so happens to be that these guys are my friends, and that's awesome.
Right.
And you know, they seem stoked to teach me, and I'm stoked to learn. And obviously, if they ever want to go sport climbing, I'm like, yeah, let's go do this. Right. I'll show you, or like whatever questions you have, or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, it's just a great community. Everyone's psyched, and I feel definitely fortunate.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for sitting down.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a little bit of a hot box in here. We're in this mobile studio right now. It's
sweating.
Like about 1 billion degrees in here. But it was too windy to do it outside. So I appreciate you sitting down, and hope you enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, I did.
We kind of had to work a little hectic scheduling here, but
it was worth it.
Yeah, let's go back to the trade fair.
Yeah, let's do it. PBR in hand.
All right, folks, thanks for listening, and thanks again to Chelsea for putting up with the rather sweltering mobile studio up there in the park. We were running late, but she got it done. That was super awesome of her, and I look forward to hanging out with her in the Rifle Mountain Park, sport climbing, coming months while she attacks whatever vicious project she's working on out there. And I must say, I think she was being rather generous when she mentioned that she's gotten so much support from the sort of trad climbing mountaineering community because I know that scene, and you know, like my crotchetiness, the crotchetiness can rise up out there pretty quickly when the sport climber, boulder, or comp climbers start mumbling about getting into the mountains. You know, the old men's out there can get pretty grumpy when the youngsters come sniffing around the project that they've hung their hat on for 30 years and send it in record time. But hey, she knows it's important to prove herself and do things right, so I'm sure she'll take care of business out there. Okay, folks, take care of business. Help me out at the Enormocast by going to enormocast.com and clicking on the Help Out tab. Please do that. Take a moment. If you feel like writing a review or whatever else I have suggested on that page, go ahead and do it. And you can also donate to the podcast. It is run still primarily on your donations. So check that out. If you feel like kicking down, there's a PayPal button there. I do appreciate it. Okay. Remember, folks, get out there, have some fun. Big mountains, sport climbing, in the gym, doesn't matter. Don't forget to check your knot.
you thought a little more about what you might want for your birthday?
Can I get a puppy?
You want to get a dog?
Yeah, a cuddly fluffy one. And a Bratz movie star makeover Sasha. I'm just fucking with you, Daddy. Look, I love a French Big Model 42 butterfly knife.
Oh, child. You always knock me for a loop.